99.9 Punk World Radio FM. You already know what time it is. Tonight is going to be a clusterfuck, but a clusterfuck in a good way, because we have Denver, Colorado's longest hardcore punk rock band. We got Clusterfuck right here live on the air. Josh, Van, how are you guys doing tonight all the way out there in the Rocky Mountains?
Doing well, man. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good, man. Just enjoying my Sunday. You know, you can't go wrong, man. You know, Sunday night, kicking back, having a drink, talking with Denver's finest. So you can't go wrong.
Yeah. How you doing, Van?
Good, man. Thanks for having us.
Hey, you're most certainly welcome, Van. But I know you guys are busy individuals, so I'm not going to take you away from the last few hours of your weekend. But I got to take you back to the very beginning of Clusterfuck and just ask, how did you guys all meet and come together as one to form this band way back in the mid 1990s?
Well, we all knew each other for the most part before. It's funny, I was thinking about this earlier today, and you know, every once in a while this comes up. I remember Van when he was like 6 years old. You know, we went to school together, and my brother's my brother, so I've known him since within a day or two of when he was born. I don't know when they brought him home, but I remember when Van was the new kid at school, and they brought him to school. So we just grew up together. Joe, the drummer, he grew up in the next town over, and we met him in high school. Like in high school, Van and I were hanging out, and and then we met Joe. He was playing in this band EOS in the next town over, and Van and Justin had a band called FIA that I joined a little bit later on.
Yeah, I don't know. I just started playing music, you know, whatever. I was in band during middle school and all that, but you know, self-taught like drummer on a trap set. Then messed around with a couple skater dudes and kind of skate rock band or skate punk band. And Justin was in another band, but that didn't work out. So asked him to join FIA. Then we needed a bass player, and tried out all these guys that never worked. And finally, Justin was like, "Oh, my brother can play bass."
Justin was just teaching me the songs. Like, I didn't know any songs except the songs the FIA had, because those are the only ones he just taught them to me. Like, I wasn't like, "Hey, I play bass." I helped this guy move, and he gave me a bass guitar. And then Justin's like, "We have a bass guitar. You're the bass player." So that was FIA, and we broke up basically when Van went to college, I think, in the early 90s. I think we played a couple shows, but so I started putting together some other bands, and Justin had moved away, and he lived in New Orleans, and he moved back, and then he moved to Denver. And I got the call from Justin one day saying, "Hey, you should move to Denver. We're putting this band together." So I was doing vocals for a couple of different bands I was kind of fucking around with. And I moved to Denver and joined Clusterfux. And our first show was like a week later. Hey, there's Justin right there. It was like a week later. We played in Boulder. And then Van and Justin both played in another band, Up Yours, that I had played in at one time as well. And then they broke up, and then somehow Van ended up joining Clusterfux, and so it was always my brother and I. So now the Clusterfux is almost the same lineup as FIA was, but like dudes are on different instruments except for Justin. Was always a guitar player, still a guitar player. So yeah, it gets a swirling mix of bodies, but the three of us here known each other, like I said, since day one of life almost.
Van's mom's my kindergarten teacher.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Mrs. Fisher.
That right there is just proof that it's a small world, man.
Yeah.
But just before you go to the next question, man, I just want to say thanks for joining, man. I hope you're having a great night out there. It looks like you got a few minutes off from work, so glad you're giving Punk World Radio your break tonight, man.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This is awesome.
What show are you working tonight?
We got man, I can't even remember the name of this band. Next up is Tech Nine, and then Falling in Reverse.
Oh yeah, you're at Fiddler's Green tonight, huh?
Yeah, Fiddler's Green.
good old Tech Nine and Falling in Reverse. That crowd's going to be very interesting. But,
yeah, you could say that's a good word for it.
I saw Justin earlier today, and he mentioned he was working the show, and we're like, "That's that Ronnie Radke dude, right? That's Stoink and Tommy Lee's wife or something." And like, so like, did a real research on that guy. He's a real piece of work, involved in like some, shooting death somebody, domestic violence.
yeah.
Beat up some 16-year-old girl, like just this list of shit. Like
A lot of people are wearing a T-shirt that's his mugshot.
Oh, so they just celebrate it?
Yeah, 100%.
Our hero's a douchebag.
I mean, I don't even know what to say to that. I really don't. Normally, I'd be like, well, money's money, but that's a new level of dirty money, man.
But he really wasn't doing Tommy Lee's wife. It was like this whole, I don't know, whatever. We don't need to talk about that.
Oh, man, he might have been doing Tommy Lee's wife, but all I'm going to say is Tommy Lee was probably doing his wife or girlfriend at the same time because it's Tommy Lee, man. Like as the old saying goes, never leave your girlfriend or wife alone with Motley Crue because they will fuck her.
Oh, shit. That's a good life lesson right there.
Yeah.
It is, man. That right there will show you right then and there. That's a life lesson that you will learn. You leave your girlfriend alone, that's what happens, man.
Don't let them ride with Vince Neil.
That one is true too. I mean, you never know. He might just roll over a couple times and hit a wall. Yeah, but before I get myself canceled, all right. Well, we're still in the 90s. 97, you guys actually teamed up with fellow punk rock band Up Yours to actually release a collaborative vinyl called Capitol Hill with Punks and Swirl. I was wondering if you can actually tell us the story behind this particular record. And, of course, what was it like just working alongside Up Yours for this release?
It's funny is all three of us were in Up Yours at one point. I got kicked out. And then these two guys were both in Up Yours still. So we did the split. Weren't we all like, we were like all living together and shit. It was like the big bro down.
Yeah, so that was my first venture into putting vinyl out. In Denver, we have a place that makes your metal plate for you, and there's a guy named Aardvark, and he's been around forever and ever doing this. And so a friend of mine gave me his card, and so I called him up and got the vinyl made. And at that point, I didn't even know you were supposed to get your recording mastered. So I just gave them raw recordings, essentially unmastered recordings, to make these records out. So if you listen to that record and the record after that, the volumes are kind of quiet because I didn't know you were supposed to master your recording, and I didn't know how to make a record cover at that point. And so that record, if you get the original record, it's on construction paper with the covers Xeroxed and then glued on the front of the construction paper, and then put in a poly bag. And that's how we put it out. And that at that point, you could do a 12-inch vinyl pre 9/11. You could do it for pretty cheap. Where now you're looking, if you're going to press 300, you're looking at $3-4 grand sometimes. Where at that point, I was able to do it for I think $1,000 and get 300 copies. And so I just saved my money and wouldn't eat for a little while, and then just put it towards the record. And we eventually got it out. And yeah, like Josh said, Up Yours, I was playing in both bands at the time, and the cover is actually my butt. So yeah, and if you look at the cover, it says On Capitol Hill with Punks and Swill, and every word's in a different font. And that's because my roommate had got a computer, and I realized you could pick fonts, so I just picked every font and changed every font for every word. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
That's right. I didn't realize that's why the letters, the font was like that.
Yeah.
Experimenting with the computer.
Yeah. And so, yeah, Up Yours and Clusterfux, we all practice on the same gear. We all were living around each other. And yeah, it was just like a collaboration of what was happening between all of us at that time.
Yes, when I moved to Denver to join Clusterfux, there were 7 of us in a 2-bedroom apartment. And so I think Justin was in the apartment at the time, and Greg from up yours, and Barlow from up yours. So,
Yeah, I
yeah,
lived in the closet.
yeah.
And I just love the DIY feel to that record as well, especially when you mentioned the construction paper aspect that you actually did with the original cover, man. I got to say, that right there, one, saves a lot of money that you could put back into the music, and two, I mean, it's just DIY type stuff, man. The construction paper aspect. And once you got a plastic over the vinyl, man, you're golden. People won't even know until they pull the vinyl out.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, we had to sit on the floor. A couple of us lived in this place called 13th and Corona, and we would just sit on the floor with construction paper. I'd make my roommates help me fold the paper and glue for hours, putting the covers together. On the next record, which was just self-titled, that one actually has like a real record cover, and that was because a friend of ours who played in some bands around town, this guy Dave Paco, turned me on to a place to get record covers printed. But how you had to do it was you would go get like a negative plastic. What's the word? Like if you're making a silk screen, you get like a negative of it, and you had to get this big clear piece of plastic with the record on it, and then take that plastic and a big piece of cardboard and mail that to the company, because you couldn't just email them a picture and have that as your cover. It was like this weird process that I only did that one time.
And also, as I mentioned at the intro to this interview, you guys are known as Denver's longest running hardcore punk band. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about how the Denver, Colorado scene has evolved throughout the years, because I know anybody could really Google. If they're not from Denver, they could kind of Google a little bit about it, but you guys lived it for decades, man. So like, how has the scene evolved throughout the years from like, the mid 90s right up into 2025?
It's pretty wild. Like I was talking to this guy the other day, and I was talking about before we actually moved to Denver, and there were some bands in Denver around the time, like Innocent Addiction, Acid Pigs, that were that was late 80s, early 90s, when punk and hardcore and metal were all kind of crossing over. And I remember going to a show at the Ozlon Theater, and it was like Blistering Body Pus, Violent Degenerates, and there's like 400 or 500 people there for a local show in Denver, and like it was long-haired dudes, mohawk dudes, skinheads, and that was how big the scene was then. But that died out pretty as big as it got. It came right back down. By the time we moved to Denver in the mid 90s, the scene wasn't like that. It had it definitely gotten smaller. You guys jump in anywhere, but like when Clusterfux and Up Yours were first starting to play out, we'd go months between playing a show.
Yeah,
We'd go months between going to a show. Denver was still a cow town back then. Like, it wasn't the thriving metropolis it is now, and so the stuff, it was just a lot smaller. And you had places like Cafe Euphrates that popped up, or the Raven, which I think became the Climax. I think they were the same place, right? Yeah. And so you started to have some bands coming up and whatnot. But in those early days, I think where they kind of crescendo maybe was like Garageland. This guy Melissa had this place called Garageland, and like there'd be thrash metal bands, grind bands, punk rock bands, street punk bands, hardcore bands. Like it was the place, and it was because all those types of bands would come together and play together. You had a big, diverse, kind of thriving scene. Remember, we were on tour, and like booking shows, like, oh yeah, let's email Melissa, we'll get you a show at Garageland. But while we were on that tour, it also became known as just a big party place. So people would just go there to get to party, and that's what happened. And some kid went home throwing up, and parents like, where were you? And called the cops and got that shut down. And then after that, the scene was not as diverse. It kind of split into its pockets.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I'll let you take that part.
Oh, I was going to say, starting off, I remember like the first Clusterfux show was opening up for Up Yours and Blank 77. And that show only had like maybe 100 people at it. Where, you know, I mean, Blank 77 was considered a pretty big attraction, but it was just to show you how kind of small. And it wasn't even in Denver. It was in Boulder, the next town up. Because like Denver was really mellow. It was like Alcoholocaust and Ben Hogan. There was only like a small pocket of bands that were like not pop punk, that were like a harder underground DIY style of punk rock. And so, yeah, like Josh said, when we first got here, the big scene had died out, and it was just kind of these like a few bands trying to make it, and it was just about making connections with people and people hated each other, and it was really, we had to kind of go in and meet the different groups of punks from the different suburbs and start like making friends. And then that started kind of like collaboration started kind of bringing the whole scene together, and it started to really grow. And then like Josh said, Garageland came along, and that was popping. And then it shut down. And then within a few years, you had Blastomat.
Yeah.
And that was the venue. And at that point, the scene was super fractioned. Like a certain type of punk would only play at this venue, and a certain type of punk would only play at this venue, and they wouldn't cross-pollinate at all. It was really weird.
Yeah, there used to be shows where like it would be like Clusterfux, like a hardcore band like Home of the Brave, and you know, goofy punk band like Fourth Year Freshman or something. We'd all play together. And those bands like Home of the Brave, Hard Soul, were broke up and disbanded or whatever. But there was this there was like this defining moment. There was this party, and a fight broke out at the party. And people said some shit, and lines were drawn, and that was it for years. That like fractured the scene. So like just so
that's still felt, and that was well over 10 years ago.
Yeah, that was, dude. That was probably longer than that. I don't even think Johnny was born. That had to be like over 17 years, like almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, so it was a while back. But it's crazy because still I see dudes who are part of that scene, and they're like apprehensive to talk to me, and it's just like, dude, we're all old people now. Like, you got to move on from that shit.
You know, and then you had like Blastomat, and you know, and like grindcore was really big in Denver for a long time. I remember people were like grindcore or Grind City USA or whatever, and like and Blastomat was the epicenter for that, as well as just it was really the DIY spot in Denver for a long time. A lot of the more like hardcore bands, like I can't remember the name of that place, Sox place. They had that downtown, but anything that was a little bit heavier, more DIY was that Blastomat. You know, like there was a lot of crust bands there.
Yeah.
But then like NPC played there, and Phobia. And
yeah, first you had Monkey Mania.
Oh yeah,
Monkey Mania, and then after Monkey Mania came Blastomat, and those were like the underground, crust and grindcore and anything that essentially wasn't street punk.
And so now Blastomat is called Seven Circle, and they do all kinds of anything that's underground DIY stuff, all flavors of punk, metal, whatever. They do it all there. So I would venture to guess that especially if you included Blastomat run, that's probably one of the longest DIY running spaces in the country.
Yeah.
I will say though, you guys lived all this history, especially with like the Denver punk rock. You guys should do your own DIY documentary on this, man. Like straight up, being Denver, Colorado's longest hardcore punk band. Just do it, man. Just DIY it.
We'd also Denver's longest hardcore band. Also, the band that has filmed the most documentaries that have never been released.
Yeah, there's been like 4 or 5 attempts to die. Like they all get like half made, and then we never see the light of day. They never see the light of day. It's a bummer.
If somebody just curated all the interviews that we've done for all these documentaries that have never been released, you'd have a hell of a movie.
What if you just put them all together and try to make it make sense? I mean, it is DIY, right? I mean, just put it all together, slap it on YouTube, and see what resonates.
Well, there was the one that didn't the guy got in a fight with his girlfriend and deleted everything and left town or something. And they're like, what?
Damn, that sounds like a country song in a way, but not really a country song. You know what I mean? It's like punk rock country right there, man. What the hell?
But I mean, if any listeners out there want to come to Denver and really get it done, I mean, there's plenty of do some interviews and there's plenty of video footage we could get you. And we've already, like Justin, like compiled all the flyers and everything. He gave it to somebody to take pictures of and shit. And like,
yeah, I have. There's video going all the way back to '95 of us playing. And but yeah, it's always some weird thing happens and no one will ever finish the documentary. It drives me up the wall. And like we have crazy stuff's happened to us. We've had, unfortunately, 2 drummers pass away. We've had one of our singers is in prison for the rest of her life. Like it's been a crazy story, but it's hard to get people. We had one kid, it was a school project, and he did half the documentary and turned it in for a school project and got a good grade, so he never came back and finished it.
Is that what happened with that dude?
I think so. That's the only thing I can come to the conclusion of.
Was he a high school student or a college student?
College.
Let me guess. He was a television broadcasting student.
Yes.
See, I will admit, I can say this. I did 1 academic year of television broadcasting, and almost every single person that was in that program was just like that, man. Like they just didn't really care about it. They just did whatever they could to get the grade. I've always been a radio guy, so I mean, once I had that chance, I did TV just until the radio broadcasting program reopened back up, and I'm just like, see ya. And I jumped ship immediately.
Dude, he was going out with our drummer's daughter. Are they still going
they broke
out?
Up. That's probably why.
There you go.
Yeah.
And like he did my interview, and then like the fucking sound was all fucked up, and he's like, "Oh, I'll call you so we could do it again." He never called me again. So I'm not in the fucking shit.
But I heard that one's really good. I never got to see it, but I heard that what he did was really good. That's what everybody said who saw it. Yeah.
Also, you guys are currently signed to Beer City Records. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a story behind that record deal. And of course, how did you guys get discovered by that particular label and skateboard company originally?
So we've tried to piece the origins of the story together. And I forgot some stuff that Justin reminded me of. So we played a show in San Francisco one time where like nobody was there and I was hammered and
there was 2 people there and we all got drunk as shit before we played.
And apparently one of them was Mike from Beer City. And for a little while, I was running the Profane Existence mail order in distro. And so they were distroing through ILD, which Beer City runs ILD distro. And so my email address was Clusterfux Josh, and Mike's like, "Is this the band Clusterfux? Played in San Francisco?" I'm like, "Yeah." And so we started talking and whatnot, and then Justin and I own a record store, and so we're using ILD as one of our distributors, and we carry skateboards, and so we carry Beer City skateboards and stuff, and so just always in constant touch with Mike, and it's kind of keeping him up to speed on what we were doing as a band and stuff, and then I just started sending him demos. Hey, check this one out. Check this one out, and he said, "That's cool. Let's do an album." And so we're like, yeah, we're doing an album with Beer City, man. Like, look at the roster, the Faction, MDC, DRI, Broken Bones. We're like, Attitude Adjustment. We're freaking out, and we go sign the contract to get it notarized, and we're all taking pictures and stuff. And I was like, don't post any of this. Like, let's don't count your chickens until they hatch. We're like, we're not going to tell anybody until album's actually recorded. And then COVID hit.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You know,
3 days later, COVID hit, and that was that.
and so our contract ran out, and the world slowly started to open back up, and things started getting back to normal and whatnot. And I got hitting up Mike, and, hey, do you still want to do it? Nope. Hey, do you still want to do that record? Nope. How about now? Nope. Like a year went by, and and we asked him, can we self-release some stuff? He's like, yeah, go for it. And we did, and shared some of that with him. Like, hey, check this stuff out. Look what we're doing. And we actually got to the point where I was hitting up all kinds of labels, and a lot of people tell you what you want to hear, and do they actually carry through or whatever. But then the phone rang, or I had a voicemail one day, and it was just like, Josh, Mike, call me. And that's the way he talks, So I call him, and he's like, hey, let's do a record. I'm like, yeah. And then it moved fast. And then it was like, let's do a record, go to Minneapolis and record it in 4 months from now. And we're like, whoa, okay, we're moving fast. And so then it took off. Yeah. So that was just a chance, a drunk performance 15 years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so that there's a valuable lesson for other bands in that is even when you play those shows where no one's at, you never know who's really the very few people in the audience. You never know what will come out of that, And we played for 2 people, and then like 10 years later, we got a record deal because one of those guys happened to be Mike from Beer City. So.
And that album that you guys actually dropped, one of them was actually October 11th, 2024. It consisted of 14 songs called Defy. I was wondering if you could actually just tell us a bit more about this particular record, and of course, where can we actually buy or stream it today? Because this album totally kicks ass.
Right on, man.
Oh, he's getting called in. You can buy it. I mean, just Google it. Mike does a really good job of hosting it through all those, like, I don't know, secondary or.
Hey, friends. Sorry, I got to interrupt. I got to get back. But
Have a good one,
nice
Justin.
to meet you. Thanks for doing this.
Right.
Hey, you're most certainly welcome, man. Thank you. Have a good shift.
Yep. Later, guys.
Later, man. So it's on all the major streaming sites, and it's on YouTube, and you can buy it on Discogs. You can buy it straight from Beer City. And then if you just Google it, Mike does a really good job of making sure it's set up in like all the secondary stores, like all the online stores that carry music. It's out there. Yeah. Or if you're in Denver, you can stop by Chain Reaction Records and pick up a copy. But so that's where COVID was a little bit of a blessing in disguise. Is we had the like I said, we asked them if we could self-release something, so we did the Blood EP, and most of the songs from that EP made it onto the LP. We kind of took that as like a glorified demo, and in that time, these songs could be better. Like what would we change on them? And Joe Piker, who Van's the bass player, and Van was the bass player, and then he left. Joe Piker joined, and then we had broken up, and we got back together. Van was the bass player. Okay, and now we'd record this Blood EP, and Piker comes in one day and says, "Man, this is killer, but it would sound better with another guitar, with 2 guitars." And unbeknownst to him, we've been talking a little bit about, this sounds killer, but it'd probably sound better with 2 guitars. We should see if Piker wants to play guitar. And he came in and said, "Hey, I want to play guitar." And so it just worked out that way. But so they gave us some time to work on those songs and really hone them. And then when it became time when it was getting closer to time to go record, we took a page out of the Blood Incantation playbook. I don't know if you're familiar with them. That, like, arguably one of the biggest death metal bands in the world right now. They're old friends of ours and at Denver and stuff. And reading their interviews, and they talk about how they would just practice the album in the order that they're going to record it, like, so that there's no surprises when it's just in that order. And so that's what we did. We timed it out and said, here's first side of the record, here's the second side of the record. This is the arrangement that was already figured out before we went to go record, and just started playing those songs over and over and over, and make little tweaks and little changes. And you know, we hadn't recorded yet, but Mike's already asked me if, you know, I got to turn in the lyrics. So like redid some of the lyrics, even to where I had like fresh lyrics for some of the stuff when I was in the studio that it's on the lyric sheet. But then when we got in the studio, I forgot that I had rewritten parts. And so some of the lyrics don't quite match, but they kind of match. But yeah, we just really, we had a little bit of a luxury of time there to, you know, really polish some of that stuff up.
And it's really cool that you guys actually recorded that in order. Not a lot of bands do that, man. A lot of bands jump all across the map and record whatever songs they feel are easier or whatnot, man. But the fact that you literally mapped out your entire album and then hit the studio, that's smart thinking, man. That's how you really get your, like, that's how you get your money's worth in the studio, man. You know what you're doing, you know what you want to do. Boom. That right there is time. Because when you go to studios, man, it's very time constricted, man, because it's pricey as hell. Yeah,
and you know, I just wanted to minimize risk, you know, minimize surprises, and you know, I think that paid off. And then we got to then we started playing shows with that material, and it was like, play the album in the order, like. Boom. And then so we were able to go right from the studio to playing live shows with, again, no surprises, just played in that order.
And I got to say, man, the one song that I love is Bomb Blast Anthrax Gas Attack, man. My favorite track off that record.
That's always been a crowd favorite. We'd recorded it before, and you know, going in to this album, we're like, yeah, let's do it again and change the lyrics a little bit, kind of tighten them up, modernize them even a little bit. And that's still a crowd fave.
And what were some of the topic? Oh, my apologies, Van. My apologies, dude.
No, it's because like when Clusterfux became a band with just one singer, with Josh, they kind of like, you know, they had a new drummer, Colin, and me, because like the old bass player Zach moved away, and that was kind of like the first song that we kind of created, you know, with the new lineup, not new lineup, but you know, the new direction, kind of, right, Josh? That kind of what it was.
And that's a good point that Van brings up. You know, like we've had our lineup changes, and then with that, we'd always want to quickly, with whoever the new member is, write a song with them and capture, you know, one, get them stoked. Okay, they're part of the process now. They're not just learning the back catalog. But and then there'd be like, you know, songs would be written in batches. Yeah. And that was definitely a line like, hey, right there. Okay, songs after that, you know, are going in a little bit different direction.
And also as well, we're also on the topic of albums. You guys also released a compilation project called The Sevens that consisted of unreleased material from 2004 to 2007. Speaking of unreleased material, are there actually any more unreleased material that is currently in the Clusterfuck archives, or was that just something you did to release all the old music?
There might still be a few things. There's a live recording of that drunken show in San Francisco. I just saw that cassette in the other room yesterday.
Man, you guys should release that. Call it the Drunken Diaries Live Edition. Boom.
There's another live recording done somewhere through the soundboard fairly recently. I can't remember who did that. There's a whole album. There's an entire album that was recorded and never released.
Yeah, early, the very first one, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there are a few songs still kicking around somewhere that were never released. But then that Sevens, yeah, there was a bunch of stuff on there. Some of that stuff was a band from Canada, System Shit, that we had done a split with and a 7-inch with, and so those songs are on there.
And also, last month, you guys actually had the opportunity to perform at Denver, Colorado's punk festival called Punk in the Park, where you played alongside Bad Religion, Dropkick Murphys, Circle Jerks, and so many others. I wonder if you can actually tell us a bit more about this festival, and of course, are there any more Clusterfuck shows coming up in the near future?
Yeah, Punk in the Park, and it certainly doesn't come without its controversy. So one of the guys on the board or whatever for Brouhaha LLC had donated a few $100 to the Trump campaign, right? And so that had been floating out there for a while, and then so there's a lot of talk amongst bands like, who's going to play it, who's not going to play it. We had talked about it even, and I said, I always kind of look at some other bands like Dead Pioneers are very political, like Subhumans. They play some of these shows. Subhumans are doing it. They've reconciled it in some way that they think it still makes sense. Then week of the show, some bands dropped off. Anybody that didn't know before that week, let me rephrase it. Everybody had known for months that dude had donated that money. Some bands decided to drop off the week of. They had known for months what was going on there. Again, we look, Dead Pioneers, Subhumans. Subhumans didn't play Denver, but it was like Bad Religion. They're outspoken. And we decided, we're going to go ahead and play it. We decided, we're going to go ahead and play it. A few different things, one, to not play that and then to turn around and play any Live Nation or AEG event would be completely hypocritical. AEG is owned by the Anschutz Corporation, the Anschutz family, who donate millions to Republicans, but they own all the venues, right? Unless you're just playing warehouses all the time, you're going to play one of those venues, and it's a reality. If you've stepped into that world, you've got to come to grips with that, come to terms with that. Even some of the people in some of the bands work for AEG. Their paychecks are from AEG, and they say, I'm not going to play that show. Okay, I mean, you got to do what is right for you, and that's where I think, it really comes down to a personal choice and personal decision. Even to the attendees, are you going to go to the show? And you know that. And so anybody that dropped off, or anybody that wanted to, that just shared the information and said, hey, be aware, I don't think you should go, totally support those people. That's that's how they wanted to deal with that. We took a different approach, that we're on it. Some folks that got us on it and whatnot, I definitely didn't want to burn them in any way. And we said, we've got, there's always been a lot of politics in our songs as well. One of the songs we had recently changed at a few shows to change the words to Chinga la Migra, fuck ICE, so we're going to go speak this stuff from that stage. And we walked out with they got this big flag, no kings in America, and wrote some of our lyrics on there and whatnot. And we brought that out and held it up to, the cheers of the crowd, and threw it out in the crowd. And funny enough, we played a show in Grand Junction last weekend on the other side of the state. And this kid's like, dude, I'm the one that caught the flag when you threw it out there. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So that's that part of it. It was, everybody knew that what that guy had done. Different bands, different individuals decided how they wanted to handle it. We went ahead and played it and took advantage of the platform, the stage that we were on, to make our point. The planet was fucking cool. Like, dude, we were hanging out with Brian Baker. I'm like, dude, like fucking Brian Baker. There's Keith Morris, and watching the circle jerks from the stage. We're on the stage just watching the circle jerks. That was fucking cool. Standing, watching Bad Religion right there watching Bad Religion on the stage and looking out, across, how many thousands of people. That was a trip. And then the backstage area, they had a little, I don't know, what do you call those, Van? Are they like booths or something?
Yeah, just curtained off areas for the
Yeah,
bands.
each band had their own little curtained off area, and so all the bands were kind of hiding back there, and it was all air conditioned and it was catered and stuff. It was a trip, man. And this dude, Scotty, that I know, he had like a little tattoo shop set up back there, and just the flash he was doing was like Descendants and Pennywise and Bad Religion, Circle Jerks and Manic Hispanic, and from all the different bands that were playing. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna get it. Circle Jerk Skank Man. So I got Skank Man. And Keith Morris was right there. I was like, I showed it to him, and he just like and walked away. I thought for sure he'd be a little bit more sarcastic, be like, why would you get that? And walk away. But he just snickered at it and walked away. And I was like, that's cool. I don't know. What do you think about playing that, Van?
I don't know. Obviously it was cool because we never played anything like that before, and but then again, there's a whole dilemma of what the supporter or the guys who threw it, what his background was, and it's just, I don't know. I was a little torn, but I'm glad we played it. Yeah, like you said, using their platform to speak against some of that shit is fucking. It's my,
There's like ironies on top of ironies there. You've got a punk in the park that donated to Donald Trump, but then you get the bands that are playing it that are speaking out against, and it's just like these twists upon twists.
I was even seeing comments of people being like, "Oh, come on, it was only a couple $100." But you know what I say to that? Even if it's a quarter, man, like you're still in a way supporting that stuff. You know what I mean? So I mean, whether it's $1, $200, $1 million, $1 still $1, man. So like, and also he's a billionaire. So why the hell? Like, I don't know, man. That's just my take. He's a billionaire. Why are you accepting donations anyways, man? Like, I don't know.
And then the guy, I don't even know who's the guy that donated, and he responded to all that, and his response was total garbage. It kind of dug his hole deeper. I don't remember exactly what he said, but basically he was not apologetic at all about any of it. I would bet that this was probably the last year of Punk in the Park. And somebody else will come along, they'll rebrand it, and they'll give to political parties, and you deal with corporations. Corporations often donate to both parties, and they often donate more to whatever party's in power. It doesn't matter. You can go look and do the Google, and this company gives to this side, and they give to that side, and then this party is in power, so they give more over here. This is the way it is, unfortunately, and so you've got to make personal decisions. Like, you can boycott the show and feel proud about it while you sit there in your new pair of New Balance sneakers. Well, the New Balance CEO is a flat out Trumper. They give millions. He admits, I'm a Trumper. Rah, rah. He gives millions to Trump and the Republican Party. New Balance sneakers are pretty popular in punk and hardcore world, man. And I boycott the show, but hey, look, Scowl's playing at whatever venue. Oh, that's run by AEG. So percent, you're gonna go buy your ticket, and so the money from that is going into the Republican Party. And so the guy that brought all this to light, you go buy a record off his website, 2 of his 4 payment processors that he uses, give money to the Republican Party. It's hosted by a website that gives money to the Republican Party. And like, so you can keep splitting that. And so I'm not saying what's right and what's wrong. I'm just telling you got to do what is best for you.
Exactly, man. Might as well use the platform that's given to you, man. If you have the opportunity there, I mean, like, you guys are backstage, you know, you got a Circle Jerks tattoo, you know, and one of the members of the band, you know, liked what he saw. He might not have said it, but he snickered, smiled, and walked away. So I'll take that as he totally liked it. I mean, you guys got to go on stage and absolutely shred it up and get a whole new audience of people, man. So,
yeah. You know, we're there to come along again, and we knew everything from the beginning that, hey, you're going to go play this festival and they're going to give, you know, make these donations. Probably would say no, right? Like, no, that doesn't make sense. But, you know, I look at, you know, the people that helped us out and the, you know, the commitment that we made. We honored our commitment, and people were stoked. And I think our voice was heard.
And before we move on to the topic of Punk in the Park, I do know, Josh, you mentioned you got a tattoo, but Van, I have to ask, man, did you get any fresh ink backstage at all?
No, I shouldn't. I should have, but I haven't had new ink in years, so I got to catch up to everyone else in the band because they've surpassed me. So I used to be the one with the most tattoos back in the day, but it's probably like 7 or 8 years.
Just got to go to the shop, man, and get just get little tiny tattoos a little bit. You know what I mean? Get like a little logo here, logo there. Just got that way you can get the number of tattoos up, dude.
Yeah, just getting one, you know, small one would probably give me the itch again. So,
but aside from, you know, Punk in the Park, you got your album you guys dropped last October in 2024. What is next for Clusterfux? Is there anything we happen to miss during this evening's interview that you guys still want to touch on, talk about, or promote? We still got you here live on 99.9 FM tonight.
Yeah, we've got 3 songs recorded, mixed, and mastered. We're working on a split 7-inch with Conflict Resolution out of Phoenix. We just got the artwork for the cover. We're doing this week. We'll be working on the back cover layouts and the center label. So we should be ready to send that off to the pressing plant within the next week or 2. And, you know, with that said, you know, one of the songs is called Maggots, and it's Maggots, Magats. And we got to do that one on the stage at Punk in the Park, Maggots. So we got that split with Conflict Resolution coming out. We got a bunch of shows. I think we're playing August 30th up in Loveland, Colorado. September, correct me if I'm wrong, Van, I think it's 14th at the What's Left Fest in Colorado Springs.
yeah, I think so.
And then September, October 1st, trying to figure out exactly what town that's in, but October 2nd, we're in Phoenix with OBL and Conflict Resolution. October 3rd, we're playing Pomona. October 4th, we're in LA with Naked Aggression, Wholesale Murder, Anomaly, and a couple others. And then I think, as of this afternoon, we just confirmed another fest in Colorado Springs in November. And that kind of maybe one more show this year other than those, but that kind of takes us through the end of the year. So new 7-inch out before the end of the split 7-inch before the end of the year, and quick little 4-day long weekend run and some regional shows.
Sounds like the Clusterfux are busy for the rest of 2025, but you can't go wrong with that, man. At least you guys are working, putting in the work, doing shows, releasing music. 2025 is definitely your guys' year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, a lot of good stuff happened this year. Moving a lot of records, selling a lot of T-shirts, and it's been awesome, man. It's been really wild.
And before we actually part ways here tonight, guys, obviously I know how to follow the Clusterfux across all social media platforms, but for the people that are watching down here in Canada that might not have heard of you guys, which I will admit, you guys have been around for a long time, so they better have heard of you guys if they're listening. But how can they go about following you across all social media platforms if they haven't already done so?
Go check. We're on Bandcamp. I was really good about sending out a newsletter on Bandcamp every couple of weeks. I need to get back on that. So check us out on Bandcamp, Clusterfux. On Instagram, I think we're Clusterfux Denver. Let me see. Yeah, Clusterfux Denver. And then Facebook, I think we're Clusterfux Denver or Clusterfux 303, something like that. And then what's that one? We actually have a Blue Sky. I haven't posted anything on Blue Sky in a while. And we have a TikTok. I don't know that I've ever posted anything. I think I posted a flyer or something on TikTok. I don't really understand TikTok. I gotta get my kids to show me how to use TikTok.
I can't even understand TikTok. I made one for the station, posted one video, and I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. So I literally just quietly backed off the platform, just abandon it.
Yeah, I was on it. I couldn't figure out how to share stuff. Maybe I just need to sit down with it. I don't know. But yeah, so on all the social medias there, Instagram's probably the one that I'm most active on.
But I got to say, first and foremost, Josh, Van, thank you so much for your time. I know Justin chimed in for a little bit there when he was on his break at work. So if he does happen to watch the rest of this interview, thank you, Justin, again for your time, man. It was an honor. But Josh, Van, thank you guys so much. Hopefully down the line we can make this happen again sometime soon. But for now, have yourselves a phenomenal night out there in Denver.
Where my Beyond Possession, the Canadian hardcore punk legends there for this interview, man. Beyond Possession.
But no, guys, again, thank you so much for your time. We definitely shall talk soon, but have yourselves a phenomenal night.
Yeah, cheers, dude. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks so
You're
much.
very welcome, guys.